What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Apocalypse Movies. I'm Jacob Bartley, and I am joined by Keith Barnes. And it is finally that time, Keith. We are talking The Many Saints of Newark, the Sopranos spin-off film. What did they first call the Star Wars spin-offs? Star Wars anthology. This is Sopranos anthology film. I'm going to call it that instead of a Sopranos story.
Sopranos story.
If you've been following Apocalypse or Keith and I at all for the past couple years, you know that this movie was on our radar for a long time.
Yeah.
I think for 2 years, was it delayed due to the pandemic? I think for 2 years straight, it was like at the top of our top 10 list.
Yeah.
It was your number one, and it was like my number 3.
It's my number one from last year.
Yeah, and it was your number one this year too.
Yeah.
And a little bit of background, Keith has been a big Sopranos fan for a long time.
Yeah.
I was aware of it. I watched episodes growing up as a kid when my parents would watch it, but I never watched it like fully. I never even watched a full episode beginning to end until Keith finally urged me to. Shout out to my friend Shane as well. He did try to get me to watch it for a long time, but you're the one who finally got me to watch it. So, and since then it's up there, man. It's definitely top 3 show of all time for me.
Yeah.
Probably top 2. I think it goes Breaking Bad, Sopranos, and Dexter
Same.
for me. Like that's my order.
Okay.
But so a little bit of context. We're basically Sopranos fanboys.
Yeah.
We love it. And The Many Saints of Newark is finally out. It's on HBO Max, and it is in theaters. Try to go see it in a theater. If you can, limit those distractions. And for those who didn't know, David Chase, the original creator of the show, he was the head writer on the film, wrote it along with Lawrence Connor, which we were just looking this up, has written at least 3 episodes of The Sopranos. And it was directed by Alan Taylor, who directed, I think, more than 1 episode of The Sopranos. And he's directed Game of Thrones episodes. He directed Thor: The Dark World. He directed Terminator Genesis. Back to direct, and I will say, I think he did a damn good job, honestly.
Absolutely.
I think Alan Taylor, like, this movie's way better than his other movies that I've seen. But we talked about it. Maybe he was in over his head on those other high-budget films. He seems like he's comfortable directing this film. But Keith, let's just get your general thoughts really quick. It's been a couple days. How do you feel about this movie?
Oh, I love it. I love the movie. I was happy to be back into that world, albeit 30 years obviously in the past, but it was still interesting to see most of these characters in that setting in the past. Obviously,
I like how it was a prequel, but it wasn't so far back that we're disconnected, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
So many connections, obviously characters, younger versions of all the characters we know, a lot of the characters that we know. On Alan Taylor, though, real quick, I just looked. He directed 9 episodes.
Okay. Yeah, I remember his name popping up a lot when I was watching it.
Mostly season 6. So he did a lot towards the end.
Okay.
End of the series. So
awesome.
And I think he is a guy that he's a big TV guy. I know you mentioned he did a lot of Game of Thrones, a lot of Boardwalk Empire. I think he said he directed a lot of episodes of Lost too. Apparently, Mad Men, much stuff. He seems like he's one of those guys that you just get to. If you need a guy, you just let's call Alan Taylor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like
more of one of those.
I feel
guys.
like if he, I feel like he's comfortable with these more real life situations.
Yeah.
As opposed to like Thor: The Dark World.
Right. Exactly. Although in an interview, I guess he's talking about he wants to take another. He wishes he had another shot at it, or he wants to. I don't know. I personally like Thor: The Dark World, but
it's not terrible. I mean, the Loki and Thor stuff's great, but yeah, man,
this was.
We just watched this in the trailer or in the movie theaters, and we like. I don't know about you, but me, I don't know my full thoughts the minute I walk out of a theater. Like I need, no matter what the movie is. Like it's very rare that I definitively know how I feel about a movie the second I walk out of the theater. So I try to not make any like bold statements at that point. But after a couple days of processing it, thinking about it, and I haven't watched it again. You have, but I freaking love this movie, man. I do. And it's like, it's because, and I can imagine like look, we don't get mob movies anymore. We don't get mafia movies. We don't. I guess it was a genre for a long time, and it was very popular.
Oh, it was the biggest, yeah.
Yeah, in the late 80s,
probably
and
like
throughout the 90s.
I was shoot.
I mean, I guess
the 50s, like in
yeah,
the 40s, 50s,
very,
a lot
of
of it
course.
then.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And so
it came back in the 80s.
To
like
me,
you said,
if
90s.
this movie just came out and it was like, and they were just telling this story about Dickie Moltisanti, who, for those of you who don't know and know the show, and by the way, this is a light spoilers review. He is Christopher's father, Christopher is one of the main characters in the show. Mm-hmm. And the movie follows Dickie Moltisanti, and he's the main character. And I think the marketing may have not made that clear for everybody, but that's who the movie focuses on. And if they just made a movie about this guy and it wasn't Sopranos connected, I would have still enjoyed this movie because it's fresh. It's something that we don't get a lot of these days. And then you throw on top that it's involved in the Sopranos world. It's connected to all these things that we learned about in the show. And you and I were just talking about even more than we even thought originally.
Yeah.
And you're showing these characters that we're familiar with while obviously having the main guy, Tony Soprano, actually be maybe a top 2 or 3 main character in this movie. I think it worked, man. As far as keeping it in the world, but also giving us something new.
Absolutely. We get the seeds of that relationship that he had with his Uncle Dickie. Although he was close with his father as well. I mean, his father is the one that got him into the business, post his uncle's death. I think
and I felt like his father, because remember in the series they show flashbacks how the father would take Janice to the games and stuff and leave Tony behind. And
Tony would be jealous of that.
We saw a little bit of that in this. Right. Wasn't there a shot of him and her driving off, or am I thinking of the flashback in the show? But he talked about how his dad would come home from the Yankee games or from the baseball games and tell him that their lawn looked like crap. Remember, he says that in the movie. And that was hinting towards that he never takes Tony with him to the games.
Right.
That he takes Janice.
And Tony thought that he favored Janice. And that was a big source of contention between the two.
And
between him and Janice.
They showed us in the show that like there was a reason for that he didn't want that he was able to like trick Janet. Like he would go handle some business while Janice would not really question what's going on,
Apparently it was something, I guess, with the mob that they bring their daughters to meetings.
That's right. So,
Like that.
So it wasn't like he wasn't purposefully favoring him. And then and we don't have much time. We're doing a small spoiler review, and just so you know, Keith and I are going to do an in-depth spoiler review on Bartley and Barnes on Wednesday night, around 8 or 8:30 p.m. Stay tuned. We'll talk about that. But one thing this movie does outside of giving us this amazing character in Dickie, it shows us the psychology of Tony growing up at this age and how different things, his mother, his father, Dickie, how it all influenced him and eventually led to who he's going to be.
Well, and especially with his mother, and who played brilliantly by Vera Farmiga. She really, really captured that. Like I said, rewatching a lot of season 2, she really captured Livia Soprano and her just constant
she's kind of scary, to be honest.
And you see, if you spoiling season 1 and season 2, she tried to have Tony killed, and then tried to act like she didn't. And I mean, she is a quite a ruthless character, while also playing a victim herself. Everybody blame me. You and your father blame me. Like the scene I just watched just a few minutes ago. Vera Farmiga captured that perfectly. Like it was really, really well done by her, and great casting. And she's a great actor in everything, but she nailed this, man. She
absolutely
really nailed it.
Look, we talked about John Bernthal, Corey Stoll, Vera Farmiga, all 3 amazing castings. But as far as them 3 go, I think Vera Farmiga stole the show. Like, she was incredible. Corey Stoll captured Uncle Jr.
100%.
Like, if you told me like the actor who played Uncle Jr. time traveled and got younger somehow and played him again, I would believe you. Because,
and he said all of Uncle Jr.'s catchphrases, which I'm not going to say here, but your sister's
C
word.
So
Junior says that all the time. That
It captured
pettiness
it
of Junior,
perfectly.
absolutely.
And look, we never really got to know Johnny. You know,
No,
we
not
saw
really.
flashbacks of him, so it's not fair to say that John Bernthal didn't capture Johnny Soprano. That wasn't it at all. It's that they made
He played
Johnny Soprano was an ancillary character. He was
You're right.
even less of a character than Uncle Junior was in this movie.
Well, if there's this movie starts off in 1967. I think Tony is probably about 10 or 11 years old.
And it's a different actor. It's not Michael Gandolfini playing him. Yeah.
Right. And I think the first 50 minutes or so is set then. And then the time jumps. The time that his father, Johnny, went to prison for about 4.5 years.
Yes.
So for a lot of it, he's not in it because of that.
Exactly, yeah.
But
I still like the casting of John Bernthal. If they continue this at all, movie or TV, I want them to focus on Johnny more.
Yes.
Because we don't get a lot of him in the show or this movie.
Absolutely. And I think that definitely will. I think if they go forward, I
want to see, why is he the leader? What made him the guy?
Well, they mentioned in the movie, like, he became a really big earner. Like, he was making a lot of money.
Yeah.
So he kind of, I think, just through his natural leadership and his, he's a very aggressive guy. You know, he just kind of took the lead. Sort of like the way Tony did in the beginning, in the first season of the series. So.
And I think John Bernthal is perfect for that kind of role. So let's, before we get out of here, I do want to talk about Michael Gandolfini. I think that's one of the big things that a lot of people were questioning going into this. Can he not carry this movie, but can he carry the character of Tony Soprano in this movie? How did you feel about his performance?
I thought he was great. I thought he was great. It was definitely, it's a tough task. Obviously, he's playing not only a role that his father's role, but such an iconic role, like one of the most, like, if not the most iconic TV character of all time. He's probably got to be in top 3 to 5.
Top 3, yeah, I would say, yeah.
So that's a tough task to take on for any actor, let alone your son. You know, I thought he did great. He wasn't doing an impression. He knows his dad. He knows probably all his mannerisms and all the stuff. He probably had to study a lot of how James portrayed the character, because if you watch James Gandolfini interviews, he doesn't talk like Tony Soprano at all. He's a very well spoken guy. So for Michael to step into that role, I thought he did a really good job. It wasn't an impression or anything. I think he made it his own. While also, and it helped that he looks just like him, obviously, because it's his dad.
Yeah, so. Especially they knew that shot in the trailer in the phone booth. Like, what'd you say?
Yeah, exactly.
That scene, he looks just like him. I'll say, after processing it for a couple days, I thought he did a really good job. He's not in the whole movie, so don't go into this thinking it's from beginning to end. It's Michael Gandolfini playing Tony. I thought they used him perfectly, because it's subtle. It's subtle in both the way they use the character and the way he plays him. It's not over the top. It felt natural. It didn't feel forced. And a couple scenes that make me think of that is when we see him interact with Christopher as a baby, which was very interesting. And for those who've seen the movie, you know that Christopher's basically narrating the movie from his grave. So, like, there's always been religious undertones in The Sopranos, and they kind of play on that here, especially with the beginning of the movie in the graveyard, and then just the way that he's narrating the film throughout, which I love the Christopher character. So, and I mean, he's not a good guy. Tony's not a good guy either, but you can still love these characters for how complex they are. Real quick, Keith, and again, we're going to have much more time to talk about this on our in-depth spoiler discussion, but what was one other thing you wanted to talk about before we get out of here?
Well, definitely, real quick, shout out to Leslie Odom Jr., who was great as a character.
Very good. Very good.
Sort of the antagonist. He's got his reasons for doing what he's doing, some of which may be justified. He's not a good person either. Let's just get that clear. But
yeah, I mean, are any of them?
Yeah, exactly. But he did a great performance by him. I look forward to see more of him. But I just watched the scene. It's in the trailer where Tony is talking to his guidance counselor. And a big basis of The Sopranos is him going to therapy, talking to
that
Dr.
reminded
Murphy.
me of that so much.
Absolutely, 100%. I was watching it just now, going, "Oh yeah, that was clearly what they were going for with that scene," and you get a lot set up into people trying to get into Tony's psyche and understand why he is the way he is, and trying to get him to express himself and talk about what's actually going on inside there.
Yeah, no, that
Great
was
scene.
cool.
Great scene. So well done. Well done.
Yeah, absolutely. Was there anything that didn't work for you at all?
Not necessarily off the top of my head. Like I said, the movie itself really felt, I don't know if this is a negative or not, but it did feel like a part of a story rather than its own contained story, which it kind of is.
Yeah.
The ending is it does just kind of just happens, and then it just kind of just ends.
Yeah, I personally like the ending for myself.
Oh, me too.
But I understand it ends very abruptly.
Yes.
And I have complained about that in other movies. Like, it just kind of ends. And it's like, oh, there was no really resolution.
So a lot of stuff that happened throughout.
And
didn't really resolve.
That made me and you think, oh, they're trying to continue this somehow,
Absolutely.
whether it's a series or a movie. I'm down for both. I prefer series if they can continue it at all. But I will say, just as a fan, when he's looking at Dickie in the casket and he remembering that moment where they did the pinky finger and
swear.
They show the pinky go on his pinky ring and the music kicks in.
The theme song.
Bro, I'm telling you, I got chills during that moment.
You saw me in theater. I started clapping right away.
Like, look, some people might think that that's cheesy. The way the song came in and then he's like they showed the flashback of him, pinky swear with his uncle. Yeah. I loved that.
Me too.
I loved it.
Me too. Listen, shout out to that the young kid. I don't have the actor's name, but played the young Tony. Also, he was actually pretty good. Well.
Honestly, because we didn't see much of him in the trailer.
Yeah,
he did a really good job.
He was very good. Yeah, he really was.
Well, don't worry. We're going to talk more about the Many Saints of Newark on Bartley and Barnes this Wednesday. We're going to do that live. So if you want to come talk to us about it, you want to go out, watch the movie, and we can have a full live discussion. We'll talk for like an hour about the Many Saints of Newark on Wednesday night. So come check us out there. But that's going to do it for this short spoiler review of the film. Thank you for joining me on this, Keith. It's always a blast talking anything Sopranos. Don't forget to check out Apocalypse Now on Tuesday. Actually, if you're watching this review, it'll be later today. And you'll hear from us. We'll be talking some Venom on there. Until then, take care.